Hello everyone and welcome back to a very popular series on this channel called Who Would Win. It's a series where we compare the power levels of two champions based purely on their lore. This means that while you watch this video, you should forget everything you know about them from the game itself. Gameplay will play no part here, it is all about the story. So, as always, I let you guys suggest the duels on our Discord. We let it run for about a week and now it is time to harvest the most interesting fights. So why don't we jump right into it? Let's start with Master Yi against Lee Sin. One would say this would be a close battle. Essentially we are talking about two masters, each with their own art of war. Yet there is a deciding factor. Master Yi is the last remaining Wuju master in Ionia. Wuju is a swordsman style so deadly, the village that came up with the concept had to keep it hidden and isolated from the rest of the world. In the hands of an enemy, Wuju style was easily capable of slaughtering entire armies. And it was first put to use by Yi, when Noxus invaded the coast of Ionia. To Noxus, Yi was considered so dangerous they couldn't allow the art of Wuju spread any further. So they targeted the hidden village responsible for teaching it, and wiped it off the face of Runeterra with chemical destruction. Master Yi is now the last remaining wielder of Wuju style in Ionia, with his recent and only disciple, Kong. On the other side we have Lee Sin. When Lee Sin was a child, he came to the Shojin monastery and claimed that the great dragon chose him to wield its powers. The elder monks did see the power within the boy, but they also saw pride that could bring disaster. During his training, Lee Sin sneaked into the hidden archives and found a text describing how to call upon the spirit realm, and the next day he tried to use his new skill in combat. This led into Lee Sin unleashing the dragon's rage in a wild kick, paralyzing one of his instructors. For this, Lee Sin was banished. He spent the next few years looking for a way to redeem himself. He traveled into Freljord where he would seek Udyr, a well-known spirit walker. But when he arrived, Udyr was a broken and wild man. Just like Lee Sin, Udyr himself also struggled to control the powers he was granted. Realizing that both of them needed a spiritual guidance, Lee Sin invited Udyr on his journey back home. That's when Noxus invaded Ionia and the Hirana monastery was besieged. Lee Sin was left no other choice but to unleash the dragon's wrath once more and protect his people. A tempest of flame engulfed him, searing his skin and burning the sight from his eyes. Imbued with wild power, he crippled the invaders with flurry of breakneck punches and rapid kicks, the untamable spirit flaring brighter and hotter with each blow. The monks were victorious, but the monastery was in ruins. Now blind and lost in darkness, Lee Sin understood that no mortal could ever bend the might of the dragon spirit. But even through these struggles, ultimately the wild dragon powers would lead into his victory over Master Yi. There is a couple of reasons for this. First of all, Master Yi is a swordsman. Without his sword, the art of Wuju is significantly weaker. Or to be honest, without any weapon. For example, that's why Wukong has a staff. Lee Sin is a monk, trained to fight and defend others with whatever weapon he can grasp. Sometimes even without a weapon. So if Lee Sin manages to disarm Master Yi, he has a major advantage. But this would still make them about equal enemies in the end. After all, even the Wuju masters were taught to improvise. But that's where the dragon's rage kicks in. You see, unleashing the power of the dragon engulfs Yi in such a massive fireball, it consumed the entire monastery. You know what a sword cannot cleave? Flames. You know what Yi's sword is made out of? Steel. And steel can get melting hot. And when it's hot, you can't wield it very well. So Master Yi would be automatically disarmed in a fight against Lee Sin. So overall, there are too many advantages for Lee, no matter from which angle you look. Next we have Yasuo versus Riven. This is a classic battle that no doubt many people will be interested in. However, the recent stories reveal new information. So now we have a definitive answer to who would win this duel. Yasuo was born to a village where master swordsmen were capable of using the wind technique, an incredibly difficult skill only few could truly master. And of course, despite Yasuo being impatient and ignoring most of his teachings, he was naturally gifted, and in the end he was able to grasp the force of wind. Thanks to his brother Yone, Yasuo became a personal bodyguard of their master. When Noxus invaded, all of the other swordsmen rushed into battle. Only Yasuo was tasked with protecting the elders. The war raged on, and eventually the drums of war sounded in the next volley over. That's when Yasuo abandoned his post and slaughtered the invaders. When he returned, their master was found dead, allegedly slain using the wind technique, which no one but Yasuo mastered. So with that, Yasuo was accused of the murder, and he's been on the run since. But thanks to the confession of a Broken Blade story, we learned that Riven played a big role in it. As a child, Riven was a Noxian soldier. Her ability to wield a sword was so natural, Noxian enchanters crafted her a runic blade. She carried the blade with her into the war when Noxus invaded Ionia. There, Riven saw that glory and honor was a distant concept for Noxus. They wiped out village after village with chemical weapons. Every soldier, enemy or ally was just a disposable pawn. Riven no longer wished to fight for a region that cares not for their people. And in anger, she tried to break her own sword. But the enchanted runes refused to break, and the sword held in one piece. That was until Riven found Yasuo's village, and she met their master. The master offered to help Riven, and he attempted to break the blade using the wind technique. He even succeeded and the weapon was shattered, but one of the shards that chipped away during its destruction was responsible for the master's death. Riven didn't kill the master herself, but the weapon did it for her. If we sum up everything that happened in these two stories, it is obvious that this battle would be one-sided. Yasuo is the legendary master of the wind technique, and Riven is just a really good child soldier, with a shattered enchanted sword. Maybe the wind can't cleave the black runic blade, but it can cleave the girl. Next up we have Lissandra versus Velkoz. Many people may not realize that Lissandra is actually unlikely to face Velkoz. Right now, Velkoz is between Freljord and Noxus in a place called Tokagol. Velkoz even reveals that there is a hidden void rift beneath that place. Lissandra is one of the original three sisters. She's the one who communicated with the Watchers deep inside the void, and they convinced her to prepare Freljord for their arrival. But when the time came and the Watchers decided to rush into the physical world, Lissandra saw the horrors and quickly froze them beneath the Howling Abyss. And with them she froze majority of their people too. Now paranoid and eager to hide her betrayal, Lissandra is on a quest to wipe out all knowledge of her and the Watchers from Runeterra. Velkoz, on the other side, is not an actual Watcher as many of you may believe. Velkoz is just a void spawn, a scout for the Watchers. He's gathering knowledge and materials for the Watchers themselves, giving the Watchers the tools to invade Runeterra. And here the term victory may be misleading. A victory for Velkoz would be gathering enough knowledge for the Watchers so they can consume the universe. A victory for Lissandra would be driving back the Watchers and sealing the rift. And it is possible that neither of them would be able to do their part. While Lissandra is a powerful witch, she might have trouble while defeating Velkoz. Velkoz can melt physical matter to gather information and even evolve and adapt to his surroundings. So was he to go into Freljord, he would be able to adapt to freezing temperatures. And ice or avalanches wouldn't really be a weapon to stop him. He can melt everything after all. A little bit of water wouldn't be an issue. On top of that, the Watchers can taint ice to create true ice, or black ice depending on how you look at it. So they can even use Lissandra's powers against her. On the other side, with enough sneaking around, Lissandra might be able to freeze Velkoz. Which means that she can stop him, but I doubt she could ever win against the power that truly lies behind him. No matter how you look at it, Velkoz would win sooner or later anyway. Even if he is somehow destroyed, the Watchers can create more scouts with his knowledge. Just remember that Velkoz is the oldest Voidborn alive. He was likely among the firstborn creatures, and to this day he managed to survive. Next up we have Tryndamere versus Olaf. This one will be quick because we don't have a lot of information on Tryndamere. We know that Aatrox was somehow involved in his life. With the new lore, we are not exactly sure how though. It is possible that Aatrox wanted to use Tryndamere as his next vessel. So Aatrox fueled him with some of his own powers, possibly to prepare him for the transformation sometime in the future. But all of this is speculation really. Olaf on the other hand is a warrior of Lokfar, a small Viking region in western Freljord. There, a shaman showed him his future, and Olaf learned that he was destined to die of old age. An insulting end to a true warrior. So ever since then, Olaf seeked out the greatest dangers the world could offer, awaiting a foe that could finally slay him in battle. However, against all odds and according to his destined fate, Olaf was able to slay massive worms, krakens, and even armies of undead as he traveled to Bilgewater to fight back the mist. If his destiny cannot be changed, this would mean that as long as Olaf fights, he cannot die. Therefore, not even a barbarian king such as Tryndamere would be a match for him. Next we have Ornn against Aatrox. The answer here is decently easy to figure out. As a Darkin, Aatrox is a Shuriman ascended god warrior touched by the void. Just as the other Darkin, Aatrox can also use blood magic to shape his body to fit him in battle. This combination of magic and Targonian power of ascension makes him incredibly powerful. I said Targonian ascension because in the story Twilight of the Gods, we learned that the aspects are somehow involved in the making of Shuriman ascended warriors. Nevertheless, Aatrox can truly be a godslayer and a world ender, easily capable of slaying someone like Ornn, a demigod that's purely focused on crafting perfect and unbreakable items. After all, how can a blacksmith stand against a godly warmaster? And don't bring up Volibear. At least he doesn't wield a sword. But against all of that, Aatrox would still lose. You see, the Aatrox that we know is just a shell of his former glory. He was sealed inside a blade and his physical form was taken away from him. So Aatrox is now using the bodies of whoever picks up the sword. And of course, compared to the god warrior, the body of a mortal being is quite a bit weaker. So in the current form, no. Aatrox couldn't stand against the stampeding ram of Hardhome. But should Aatrox be fully unleashed one day, there might not be a physical creature that would stop him. Then we have Camille versus Echo. You asked for no handicaps, by which I guess you mean if they met in a place where they could see each other clearly and no sneaking was involved. See, this is easy. Echo is able to recall back to a recent point in the past. And by doing so, the stories seem to hint that he does heal back, but he can definitely still feel the pain. You can see that in his cinematic, where every time he recalls he is still dealing with the painful blows. And in Mundo's story, Echo clearly got hit with his infected cleaver, and yet he was able to escape. But Camille is not about wounding the targets. Every blow Camille struck was precise and deadly. If Camille lands a hit on Echo, he is dead. No recalling back, no healing back up, that's the end. Remember that Camille is a trained agent. She has many years of experience in fighting. Echo is just a punk child. He is really smart, but I doubt he would be able to avoid a trained cyborg assassin. This one clearly goes to Camille. And the last duel, Ryze versus Velkoz. We don't even really have to doubt the outcome here. Again, I don't think Ryze can achieve a real victory here, since he won't be able to stop the Watchers. But unlike Lissandra, Ryze would be able to destroy Velkoz. Some may point out that that's what he did in his cinematic. There he also destroyed a void spawn similar to Velkoz. But that one was behind an ice barrier. Was he to face Velkoz in open space, that would be much harder. But not impossible. The world runes already gave Ryze enough power to deal with great threats. And maybe he would be able to destroy Velkoz without going Super Saiyan. But if by any chance Ryze was in trouble and Runeterra was endangered, he can always retreat to one of the vaults and pick up a world rune, then annihilate whatever danger there is. I doubt he would ever do that, unless there was a serious reason. But should the world be at the brink of destruction, Ryze does have the tools to stop it, or at least delay it, because even though he would be able to destroy Velkoz and win the fight, I strongly doubt he would win the war. Again, I want to thank all of you for suggesting these fights. Massive props go to our Discord team for organizing it. But that is it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to rate it. Seriously, likes seem to actually matter if you watch the entire video. And subscribe for more lore and news. Links to our social media, Twitch, merch and P.O.Box will be in the description. Of course, massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile, you guys are incredible. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support, you know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you, come again.